Welcome, folks, to this week's edition of Tech Sales Advice. I am, of course, your host, Chris White, and this is the LinkedIn Live program for pre-sales professionals and pre-sales leaders. And as a reminder, these are live conversations, folks. This hasn't been recorded some other time. We are coming to you live. My guest, Karsten Chearis, is, and I had to write this down. It's a mouthful. I want to make sure I get this right. He is the manager of US and LATAM threat intelligence sales engineering with a company called Rapid7. He's joining us live from Memphis. Karsten, my friend, so nice to have you. How are you? Welcome.
I am well, Chris. I'm excited to be here. You did phenomenal with the name pronunciation and the title. It is a mouthful. So far, you're batting 100, my friend.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to try to keep that record going. By the way, you got to tell me what's going on with the lights back there. I have a touch of special effect envy right now. Well, tell me about the lights back there.
Yeah. So this is not sponsored. You have to say that right. But I'm a fan of a brand called Govee, and they make Govee, and they make pretty good lights. I have some lights behind the television that right now are kind of doing a funky thing. But it's really good to help with backlighting. So if I'm playing, video games or watching TV, the backlight makes it more immersive. Then there's also a lamp that's also Govee. But yeah, it's if you're going to be working, from home, you want your home to, be cool. So that's what I try to go for.
I love it, man. You're stepping up. You're giving me some ideas to step up my game. I mean, look, man, I tell people I speak through the lens of a camera for a living, so people are, literally looking into our home. So you're inspiring me. I think I may have to add that to my game.
Do it.
So Karsten, there's some things that we're going to talk about that are near and dear, I know, to your heart, some important topics in our profession. And to begin with, I'm inspired to open it in this way. You were particularly motivated to have this conversation this month. Do you care to share with our listeners why you were so motivated to make sure we could have this conversation this month?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's Black History Month. Even that word is controversial because Black history is world history, right? The activities, the contributions, the innovation, creativity of Black people. It's all throughout history. But I do think it's important that there is a month, at least a month where we specifically recognize the contributions of Black history. And so when you look at that, when you look at the fact that I'm a Black man, that I am so passionate about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and I have seen the harsh truth when there's an absence of DEI, I think it's a good time to discuss this during this month. The conversation should always be happening, but maybe with the motion that Black History Month usually comes with, hopefully this will be a little bit more impactful.
Well, I got to tell you, I appreciate you pressing me a little bit on having this conversation this month, and I'm inspired to sort of revisit the very conversation that you and I were having when we first met, and you said, quite frankly, Chris, there's not enough people that look like me in this profession, and we need to have this conversation. And look, I mentioned this to you a moment ago. I'm the quintessential profile of the individuals that need to pay more attention to this and more attention to diversity and inclusion and equity and be more sensitive to this. Why? I'm a straight, white, middle-aged male who, grew up in the suburbs of Washington, D.C., right? So I can assure you, if anybody's paying attention to this conversation more than anybody, it's me. By the way, Ray Bickham, I hope I'm saying that correctly. says hello. Good morning to you as well, Ray. Thank you for saying hello. By the way, folks, we do not see those of you who are out there. So if you do care to say hello, I invite you to do so. If you have any questions for myself or for Karsten, please feel free to share. Lillian, nice to see you, Lillian. Glad to hear from you. Karsten, I'm inspired to invite you to share. How did you find this profession? So many of us sort of fall into this profession, and I think it's always interesting to hear different people's journey. So do you care to share how you got into this role?
Yeah, so I started in IT operations, being an intern, which is, the politically correct way of saying you do the things no one else wants to do. So crawling under tables, connecting cables and whatnot. And then I kind of worked my way up to a help desk analyst, desktop technician. Then I kind of got into desktop engineering and system administration. And eventually I worked at a company, and part of my responsibility was email security, and doing things around what's now called Microsoft 365. It used to be called Office 365, phishing attacks and all that. And so again, I'm on the customer side, and this recruiter reaches out and said, "Hey, Karsten, there's an opening for this email security company, and I think you'll be great. It's a sales engineer." I said, "What the hell is a sales engineer?" And he said, "Okay, have you had to buy something for your company, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." He said, "Well, there was typically one person that was really, really sharp, really smart, and they answered the question." I'm like, "Yeah, that's the sales engineer." I'm like, "Oh, cool. I like those people. They don't have to sell me. We're talking about the tech." And so I was like, I've never sold anything though. I worked at, department stores, but I've never sold. And he asked me a question, and it changed my entire career trajectory. He said, "Have you ever known the right way to solve a problem, and the person that you needed to convince didn't believe you, and you had to convince them?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Welcome to sales." And I was like, "Oh, snap. Got it." So pre-sales, sales engineering is you understanding that your company's product, services, solutions can help this company, but sometimes it takes some convincing, and it's not about selling as much as it is empowering that person to become a buyer. So that's what I did. I went from SMB, commercial, enterprise, strategic. I dabbled a little bit in product management. Then I left that company. I went to my current employer as a sales engineer, got promoted, and then got promoted again. And now I'm in leadership.
Man, I got to tell you, black, white, or purple. Those are some of the most insightful words I think I've ever heard for this role. Right? Yeah. And the question that you said that he asked you: have you ever been in a situation where you had the right solution to their challenge or their problem, and they didn't recognize it, and it was on us to help them, empower them to see our solution and see how we can help them. Right. Those are because that is, at the end of the day, that is what we do. Agreed. When you moved into the role, were there any specific either challenges or surprise or things that surprised you about the job that you fully did not see coming or anticipate?
My first pre-sales manager, he knew my background, and he said, "Karsten, what do you think is going to be the hardest thing for you to be a sales engineer?" I was like, "I don't know. I think I'm going to have to learn the product." Like, yeah, but it's something else. And I didn't know. And he told me, he said, "The hardest thing is you are used to fixing problems. Like someone tells you that they can't print, and before they even said it, you need to look at the printer settings and look at the port because it's the wrong IP address or whatever. But here, it's so important that even though you know the answer, it's not about immediately saying, okay, buy this. It's instead, you have to take the time, draw out that pain, right? There's layers to it. Okay, you're having to do this. How much time does it take? How much money does that cost? What would you rather be doing with that time and money? If you have things like that, then you summarize, okay, Mr. Miss Customer, this is what I understand your pains are, and it's costing this. You would rather do that. Let me show you how my solution can help. And he was right, because as I started practicing demoing and stuff, he was like, Karsten, you know the product. I was like, okay, but I feel like that's not a good thing. He said, it's a good thing, but you know the product, but you're not having conversations yet. Like, got it. So that was very challenging for me at first. It's a mind shift.
It is.
But, you know, now I don't want to say I'm an expert by any means, but it's kind of second nature now, and I use what I learned at work on my wife and kids too.
Okay, how so? Come on, how so?
So sometimes it's you know, when my daughter, I have a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old, both girls. I am the only guy in the house, so good luck with that. And so a lot of times, you know, my oldest may say, hey, but Daddy, I want to do this, or you don't let me do that, and this, and I'll say, okay, so baby, tell me how that makes you feel. Okay. Explain how is Daddy doing something wrong? Okay, well, what would you rather Daddy do? Got it. Okay. You know, and I listen, and then ultimately I say, well, that's stupid. You know, really what I say is, no, I understand that, baby, but this is why Daddy and Mommy are positioning it this way, because there are certain things you don't see just yet. So yeah, it's amazing, man. I feel like if you're doing a good job in your day job, it should help you in your personal life and vice versa. So
amen. Well, and I'm going to take that a half a step further. I mean, at the end of the day, the skills that we develop as effective sales engineers, sales professionals, which really are understanding the customer, understanding what they're trying to achieve, putting their agenda before ours, right? They're really just people skills, right? They're relationship skills. So the same skills that make us better dealing with prospects and customers are in fact the same skills that actually make us better at home, right? So I'm inspired that you shared that. By the way, there are so many people chiming in. I just want to say hello to a few folks. Jermaine Wilson, so good to see you, my friend. I hope I'm saying this right. Is it Chamis? I hope Chamis, I'm saying that correctly as well. Amanda Bertucci, nice to see you again. So many people chiming in. So Karsten, you've already inspired me. I want to dig a little bit deeper into the things that people that look like me, if I can just use that term, can do to be not only more aware and sensitive of how we can bring African Americans and other minorities into this profession, but what can we do to make to build those relationships, build those professional relationships? When you hear me ask that question, what are some things that come to mind?
So I think it's a heavy question, and it's one that needs to be answered. And before I get into that, I think we have to address that it's a heavy question, and one Black man should not have the burden and responsibility of answering it, to say, hey, all white people in leadership, do this. You know, it's heavy, because I am a part of a people group that have been minoritized, but I am a heterosexual, cisgender, Black man. However, there are also it may be a person of Native American descent who may be identifies as transgender or non-gender conforming, right? And they have unique challenges. So I think the biggest thing that you have to understand is that you don't get diversity for the sake of being diverse, but diversity has value. Let me tell you a quick story. I'm listening to this audiobook. It's about this guy. He's a professional hitman. He came from the government, military, now he's a secret spy and all this stuff. And he talks about defense in depth. And he says in one of his chapters, he's saying, like, if you're ever in a situation, yes, eventually you need to know, as the Black people say, how to throw hands, how to fight. But if you end up resulting to a fight the rest of your layers have failed because you weren't paying attention. You didn't see who was following you. You keep taking the same path, and so now you're predictable. So defense in depth is a layered defense, but if all you have is fighting, you don't have diversity. This is what it's like as companies exist. If I'm in a room and I'm sitting at the table and no one else looks like me, that's not good. This company does not have defense in depth. If it looks like someone Googled middle-aged white man and then did a Command C, Command V, and that's your entire leadership team, that's not defense in depth. That's not layered security. And every thought and opinion is going to be mostly of the same group thing. You're not looking at things differently, and that's ultimately going to hurt your business, and it's going to hurt your people and your customers. So it can't just be diversity for the sake of diversity. It's diversity because Skittles are beautiful because there's so many colors and flavors, right? And that's what you want in order to be successful. So
that's really well said. And I'm going to repeat in my own words, what you're saying is that diversity actually makes us better as an organization. Yes. It makes us think more beyond sort of what our preconceived notions might be, right? And you're right, diversity comes in all shapes and sizes. I mean, and it's not just the way we look and where we were born and our personal. It also has to do with maybe our upbringing or our personal situation, right? Maybe some of us have kids, right? You and I are both fathers, right? So to a certain degree, that there's certain things that you and I are gonna be sort of narrow-minded on, right? Mm-hmm. Help people who fit my profile understand the emotional challenges, the intellectual challenges, and sort of the feeling of being in a room, as you just said, where you're the only one of color or you're the only one, quote, that looks like you. Help us understand that experience a little bit better, if you don't mind.
It is scary. It's scary when you're in a room and you hear certain comments, certain thoughts, and also what you don't hear. It's the silence that's also more deafening. And you can basically see the chess pieces being stacked against you. And that's not good. There's a book, and I've never read it, but it's on my list to read, but the title just blows me away. And it's something like, why do all the Black kids sit together in the cafeteria? Because they feel like they belong there. There they feel safe. And if you're in a room and you being a white male and 6 other white males are there, oh, cool. I mean, already there's certain things, I get it, I can crack certain jokes, I can say certain things, and I feel like I belong. So now I feel free to be authentically me, and no one's going to judge me. I can't do that. You know what I'm saying? Like the fact that corporate America vernacular is, hey, buddy, how was your weekend? What did you do? Nah, I don't talk like that. If I say, hey, so what did you do? Oh, that's dope. Well, what does dope mean? Is that drugs? Nah. You know what I'm saying? So like I can't authentically be me. And ironically, me being me, people look down on that. That way. Why do you dress that way? Right, like this costs money. It may not be a 5-piece suit, but this costs money. I look good in this, and I'm articulating myself well, and I'm the best at what I do. But again, if it's just me in the room and no one else, you start to feel like you're alone and you're fighting an uphill battle.
In those situations, have you ever had people that you felt were trying to reach out and connect and bring you in? And if so, what is it that, let's say I'm in that room, is there anything that I could do in that moment to make you feel more welcomed or make you feel invited and included?
So I'll do you one better. I'll tell you something that you shouldn't do, and then I'll tell you what you.
I love that. Love that.
So I was on a call. I was the only black man on the call, only black person. It was all white men, and they got on the call and they were like, "Yo, what's up, everybody? What's happening, y'all? Y'all good? What's going on? What we trying to do?" And I was like, "What the hell? Like, this is awkward, you know?" And then
it's insulting is the word that comes to mind for me. Insulting. And
then they were like, "Karsten, what's good with you?" "I'm fine. Can we get started?" You know, like that's just weird. I have had people that if I'm one of the few people or the only person of color or just the only different person in the room, if they see that I'm trying to communicate something and someone's interjecting, then it's not that I need for them to tell the other person to be quiet, but it is nice to be sponsored, right? So sponsorship is great. It's like, "Hey, I'm sorry, you know, Jim, let's hang tight. Karsten, please finish your thought, because I think you were going somewhere there, right?" And also being careful, and you want to make sure everyone is talking, so you don't want to make it seem like you're just trying to get Karsten to talk, but it should just be natural and know enough about the people on your team where you say, "Karsten, I know you came from the customer background. What do you think about the strategy we just gave? Like, how do you think that'll impact, you know, our customers?" Like just little small things like that. The final thing I will say is it's so important that when people hear DEI or inviting more people to the table, more often than not, they think it's a handout. They think that, "Hey, I'm a white savior and I'm going to help you, young black person." And that's not the case a lot of times. Like, I make good money. I am in leadership in a global cybersecurity company that is well known. I am established. I have my credentials. So your allyship does not mean like, "Hey, Karsten, do you need me to, you know, help buy your lunch?" No, it's not that. Sometimes it's just "Hey, I have influence in this circle. Let me introduce you so that you can do your thing." That's a super important part of allyship, not looking down, but understanding that we are people as well, and we have a unique perspective.
I got to tell you, man, I love listening to you speak. I'm just going to keep tossing you. I'm just going to keep tossing you a couple questions and get out of your way. I mean, you're inspiring me. You know, what I heard when you shared what not to do, what I heard is don't patronize. Right. Don't patronize me. Don't placate me. This isn't a game. This isn't an opportunity for you to make yourself feel a little bit better about yourself because you're sort of, you know, giving lip service to DEI. Is sort of what I'm hearing. On the flip side, what I'm hearing is treat me with respect because I've earned it. Treat me with respect because I know what I'm talking about, right? And you know, we're on an even playing field, right? I mean, that's really what I'm hearing. I run a sales training organization.
Okay.
And look, I'll be very transparent with you and with our audience. And by the way, I see the messages are just flying through, folks. Thank you so much for all the comments. I can't even keep track. I can't even keep up at this time. But Karsten, I got to tell you, there's been more than one occasion where I've walked into a training seminar workshop with 30, 40, 50 people. And not only are there very few, if any, African Americans, there are very few, if any, women. So this is I think this is a real problem in our profession. And when I wrote the description for this little conversation, I said, we're going to get real. And this is part of me getting real. What could I do, if anything, running my business? What could I do to reach out to, let's say, the graduating or the young professionals, maybe from the historically black universities or something, that would invite them to engage more or consider this profession more?
My favorite movie of all time is Black Panther. Love it.
So I'm a huge fan of those. I don't know if it's Marvel. I get confused if it's Marvel or the other. But all right, you have me. Black Panther. You've got my attention.
I love Black Panther, the character. I love Black Panther, how he or T'Challa specifically was portrayed in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because Chadwick Boseman truly is our Black Panther. He the dignity, the way he carried himself, the fact that he was battling this force of death that refused to let him live. He said, no, I'm going to fight another day and I'm going to make this impact and do all these things. It was so inspiring. I say this to say, for me, watching Black Panther in the movie theater was an experience because it's representation. Hey, someone that looks like me, and is a king and is rich and is capable and is intelligent and can throw hands and is funny and is charming and all of that. Representation is so important. And so to answer your question, I think that's something that we all have to remember. Strive for representation. You attract what you are. If your board of directors, if your leadership team, if your the most of your staff are of one demographic, you're just going to attract more of that demographic. But if you're purposefully looking and working hard to find a diverse talent pool, and maybe that means like, let's focus on HBCUs, or let's focus on this part of the state because we know that there are a lot of people of color that live here, for example, right? And they need to know about these opportunities. I think that's super, super important. But as you do that, again, you have to have respect. Like, don't try to say, oh, I'm trying to help you out. Like, no. I feel like you have just as much potential as everyone else, and I want you to be on my show or in my book or on this project or whatever. But representation is so, so, so important.
I love that. I'm going to ask you a question that not only did you probably not see coming, I don't think I expected to ask you this question, but okay. At some point in your career, would you ever consider getting into the training business, the sales engineer training business?
Actually, yes. But I want to do it differently. I love pre-sales. I think pre-sales is great. And I want to get people into the pre-sales world, but it's also just about helping people become better leaders, right? Because every manager is not a leader, but every leader is also not a manager. I have met janitors that were leaders while the CEO was nowhere near a leader. So I have a saying: everyone can teach you one of two things. They can teach you how to do it or how not to do it. So Chris, the way you're running your business right now, your talk show, people are looking at you and they're saying, if I just do it the way Chris is doing, I'll be successful. Or they're saying, as long as I do the opposite of what Chris is doing, I'll be like, So, and it's important for us to realize what lesson that we're teaching. So for me, yes, it's pre-sales, but I want to teach people how you can be a leader, how you can be an influencer. Spoiler alert, a project I'm working on is everyone is a creator. Everyone. You may not create YouTube videos. If you're a receptionist, you are creating the environment that people experience when they walk to the front desk. If you are a manager, you are creating the experience that your team has when they want to bring problems and solutions to you. Everyone is a creator. steward your creativity well. That's what I want to train and teach and help people about.
That's so inspiring. Well, this is not necessarily an invitation, but at some point, if you feel a calling to get into this business and want to have a conversation, I'm in a very public way inviting you to give me a call.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that, man. That means a lot. Thank you.
Your words are inspiring me. I want to sort of double click a little bit on you sort of exposed, sort of gave a little insight to this thing that you're working on, this notion that everyone's a creator. One of the things that you and I talked about in our first conversation together was quote, building your personal brand. And my guess is, my hunch is that this is somewhat related to this idea of everybody as a creator.
Yes.
Help me and our listeners understand your perspective on building your personal brand, the importance of building your personal brand, and what are some of the things that you are encouraging folks to consider?
Shout out to Presales Collective, a community that I'm a part of. I'm also an ambassador this year. They had a panel discussion, Leadership Next, and I was on the panel. And one of the questions they asked was like, "Hey Karsten, what's the secret to your success? How did you get here?" And I told them, I said, "It's because I'm dope." And people laugh. And they laugh for one or two reasons. One, because they had no idea what dope meant. Or two, they laughed because they knew what dope meant. And they're like, I can't believe you said that. So dope means accepted. And it means excellent. And so for me, I believe that I had to realize in and of myself that I'm accepted and I can do excellent work. It's so important for everyone listening, whether it's live or on a repeat, that you are dope, that you are accepted, and you can do excellent work. When kids, my peers didn't accept me, my mom accepted me. My dad didn't accept me because he left my mom and I when I was 3. But my mom said, "Baby, I'm here." My grandparents said, I'm here. We're here for you. And so I was able to take that acceptance and then start to do excellent work. And now it's my goal to let my daughters know, hey, little girls, you're accepted. Let my wife know, hey, babe, I know it was a rough day today, but you're accepted and you're doing excellent work. And so to summarize that, to go back to the question, the importance of your personal brand, you have to believe in you. Before anyone else is going to give you a shot, realize I'm worth it. I am worthy of this. I am just as worthy as anyone else. And if I'm at this table, then y'all are going to see how I'm eating. And if I'm at this table, then I'm going to invite more people at the table. And if there's not enough room, I will go help someone build another table. But you can't do that until you realize that you are dope, that you are excellent and accepted.
Man, I love that. When you said accepted, it's interesting, and you sort of included this in your thoughts.
Yeah.
One of the first thoughts that came to mind for me was we have to accept ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. And a big part of that, certainly when we're young, is being accepted by others. And as a parent, I'm the parent of 4, and I have a stepdaughter. So when you shared your words about feeling accepted by your mother and showing your daughters that they are accepted, that hits me to my core, right? Yeah. Because there's nothing more than we want our kids to know that they are fully accepted unconditionally as is, right? And then that gives them the space, the confidence, the ability to then find their excellence, yes. Right? And yes. and I literally wrote these words down. You said worth it, right? You're worth it. I've actually been listening to this series, and this gentleman refers to something. I think this is similar or related, or something they say in like these 12-step programs. And I think it says it's something like, it works if you work it and you're worth it, right? So I mean, it's just they're just such powerful words. And look, this isn't easy.
No,
it's doing what we're doing right now. It's not easy, right? It's not easy putting yourself out there. Look, I wrote a book, put it out on Amazon, and anybody could have gone out to Amazon and said, this stuff's crap. Don't waste your money, right? It's not easy. You post something on LinkedIn. Man, it's not easy to put yourself out there.
No.
But you've got to have the confidence. You've got to accept yourself. You've got to have the confidence. And the only way you're going to learn and get better is to get out there and do it. So, man, I love hearing you talk, folks. I got to say the chat is just overwhelming. I can honestly say, Karsten, I don't think one of these conversations has educed as much chat as this conversation has. So, you know, you mentioned something about batting 1,000 earlier. I think our batting average is still pretty high.
Good.
If you're okay, I'd like to shift gears just a little bit and get into cybersecurity, because I think this is an area I know you're passionate about, and I know this is an area that has evolved a great deal over the past 10 to 15 years. And you know, one of the things that you and I talked about was imposter syndrome too. So we're gonna dab on that. So remind me and remind the audience, when did you start your pre-sales career? What was the year that you started your pre-sales career? Roughly.
What is this? 2023?
It is. The last time I checked.
Last time you checked, I want to say it was about 6 years ago, I think.
Okay. So let's call it 27. We'll call it 2017.
Yeah, let's say that. Yeah.
Now, how much have you seen and we're only talking 6 years here. I mean, this isn't even a bloody decade. How much have you seen the cybersecurity industry change just in that 6 years?
Oh, crazy.
Yeah, it's mind blowing, right?
Yeah, it's funny when I see job description, 30 years of cybersecurity experience. Like, did we really have cybersecurity 30 years ago?
No, I'm telling you, we didn't.
Management information systems, right? So it's changed so dramatically. It is so intense. It used to be as simple as patch management, but now patch management is a subset of vulnerability management. And with vulnerability management, you're looking at hardware vulnerabilities, app vulnerabilities, cloud vulnerabilities, people vulnerabilities. You have the realm of that I'm in, which is external threat intelligence. So clear, deep, and dark web and threat actors and botnet attacks. So it's crazy. It is wild, but it's very lucrative, but it's crazy though. So yeah.
So how does somebody go about getting into this business now? I know there are degrees. Obviously, there are degrees that you can get specifically in cybersecurity. But is your advice to people who are moving into this profession, in this industry, in this segment of the industry, to specialize in a certain area, to become generalists? What is the advice that you, or are there both?
I would say both. So like for what I do, again, my team, we personally handle something called cyber threat intelligence, or CTI. And this simply means that you're taking pieces of information such as an indicator of compromise, like an IP address, a file hash, or whatever. You're seeing if this has been used specifically by certain cyber criminals, also known as threat actors, and if those threat actors are targeting certain industries or verticals, right? So it's kind of complex. But I also have to understand that what can threat intelligence do for a network firewall that it doesn't do for secure email gateway, that it won't do for an endpoint security solution, right? So you have to understand how you want to disseminate that information. So I would say if I could give someone advice, I would say you don't necessarily have to be a generalist, but begin to learn and read and have conversations about why do things need to be secure? Because it's not just secure from people outside. You also have separation of duties. I shouldn't be able to see what my senior director sees, and my senior director shouldn't be able to see what the VP sees, so on and so forth, right? So I would say kind of start there. And then, like, what do you really like? As you're reading about it, are you really liking coding? All right, so maybe we can do some app security. Are you really liking looking at vulnerabilities and figuring out how they're being used and then fixing that? Well, you may want to get into vulnerability management. So that's the cool thing. Get a good understanding, but as you're getting the understanding, certain things are going to just like, man, this is cool. I like this. And that's what you probably want to start focusing on.
Yeah. What gets you stirred up, right?
Yeah.
Like what gets you, if you find it boring, that's probably not the right avenue. That's probably not the right discipline to pursue, right? Or they're not the right specialty. What do you think is particularly unique, particularly challenging for sales engineers in the cybersecurity space?
It would be imposter syndrome, because you are talking to CISOs, directors of security, SOC analysts, and often they have a specialization. And they can go deep and wide and long and for hours and days about this particular thing. Unfortunately, a lot of customers or prospective customers, they like to play stump the chump. Like, oh, you're a salesman, you tech stuff. Well, how do you, desimplify what? And so the imposter syndrome thing is really, really weird, because you're not going to be the smartest person on the call. You will always be the smartest person on the call about your company's product. That is where you're the expert. So I don't have to be an expert of cybersecurity, but when it comes to threat intelligence, I can tell you all day long about why my company's product and solution helps organizations of all sizes. So you have to be careful of imposter syndrome. You can't be afraid if someone asks you a question that you don't know the answer to, and you use that to your advantage. Because if they ask that, you can say, I'm sorry, you said threat actor. What do you mean when you say threat actor? If you give them a chance to explain, they're like, I got a chance to teach someone something. You're like, okay, got it. That's what you meant. Yes, we do handle that. This is how we do it, right? So you're kind of building rapport, and you're having a conversation by not being prideful.
Well, and I'm so glad you said that. Because you're right. We can't be the foremost experts in every technology, the breadth, the depth, given particularly in your case, given the audience that you're speaking to and presenting to. But we can be experts in asking good questions.
Yes.
We can be experts in showing curiosity. We can be experts in being sincerely interested in their point of view, their world. And to your point, look, everybody loves talking about themselves, right? One of the things that I like to say is that there are times that we need to walk in and be the foremost expert in the room. But there are times when we need to let the people know that we're talking with, that we recognize them as being the foremost expert in the room, right? And this is where it becomes a little bit of a dance, right? This is where it becomes, we are professional communicators.
Right.
We are sales professionals. Now we're technical sales professionals, right? But this brings us all the way back to the very first thing we talked about when you said, I got my first job, and my boss is like, the product. And that's good, right? There's more to this role than just knowing the product, right?
Agreed.
So
Agreed.
Really, and the education for me on this is some of the things that I talk about are amplified for sales engineers in the cybersecurity space is what I think I'm hearing. I'm inspired, and again, folks, look, I say that these conversations are unscripted and unrehearsed and unpredictable for a reason, because that is precisely how they are. I'm inspired, Karsten, to come full circle on this conversation and really tie a nice tight bow on this. I want to go back to the scenario in which you're engaging with an audience and you find yourself the only African-American
Mm-hmm.
individual in that meeting. Now, we talked about, and you shared the experience when you're maybe in a meeting, an internal meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever have or find yourself feeling particularly challenged if you're presenting, and I'll just be very direct, presenting to, quote, an all-white audience? Are there certain, I guess, emotions or challenges that may not be obvious to someone like myself?
Yep. So yes, if I can have a little bit of liberty,
I want you to.
Cool. Alan posted something in the chat, said professional communicator, adding that to my resume. I want to talk on that just very, very quickly.
Please.
It's not just professional communicator, it's effective communicator. I took one MBA class, and that's the only thing I learned from that one class, but I learned the definition of effective communication. Effective communication is understanding what was said as well as what was not said, as well as how it was said, right? A lot of times when we're communicating, I need to tell the same message to everyone on my team, but they're at different stages in life and in their career. So I have to change the packaging. Some people, I can just toss it to them. Some people have to put a bow on it. Some people, it has to be in a bowl. Some people, the wrapping has to be a different color. So that's effective communication. And that actually brings us back to diversity, equity, and inclusion, is being careful of your words. A lot of times we can say things we don't realize, like that's kind of racist what you just said. You're like, yeah, I had to talk to my boss. He had to crack the whip. And that's pause.
Yeah.
You don't say that, right? So I think that's important. Now, going back to your question, I'm funny because I used to be shy and nervous because I'm gonna be the only piece of pepper in all this salt, and they're gonna be looking at me. But now I welcome that. Like I look forward to it. Not that I want it to keep happening, but I look forward to facing it head on and making a difference. On LinkedIn, a Black woman posted basically saying that African American vernacular English is beautiful and is rich, and that it should be welcome and accepted in corporate America, because sometimes you want to say, man, that's dope. Oh, that's hella dope. Oh no, that's whack. You want to say that. And I love that. And I commented and I said, as long as I'm at the table, corporate America is going to get some seasoning.
I love that.
That is what I do. So if I am the only Black person that you're going to talk to today in your board meeting, y'all about to be seasoned. I'm going to be unapologetically, authentically me. I'm going to talk about, what I have learned and what I have seen and experienced it. And I'm going to communicate that in a way that may not be what you're used to hearing, but I guarantee you will never forget it, because I recognize my gift. And I have a way of taking things that are in here and using words to be a conveyor belt so that they get in the same places with you. So y'all gonna get some seasoning until more people with seasoning get in this room with me. So yeah.
Man, I so love that. And Karsten, I'm inspired to share what comes to mind for me. And it's something that I talk to all of the groups that I work with about, and that is the importance of being authentically ourselves when presenting to an audience, right? And really, that's all you're telling me is that, look, man, you are going to get the authentic me, whether you like it or not. And look, you're a professional, and I know that you're going to deliver the message in the way that needs to be delivered. Just like you said, sometimes it needs to be, wrapped in a bow. Sometimes it needs to be put on a silver plate, right? Sometimes it probably needs to be broken down and fed in very small doses, right? I mean, depending on the audience, but you are authentically yourself. Yeah. And I think we are best in our roles if we are authentically ourselves. people know this working with me. You kind of get what you pay for. Like I don't have other versions of me. I just don't know how else to operate. I'm a hand waver, and I'm a loud, I'm kind of loud and gregarious, and that's just who I am. I'm not a great joke teller, so I don't tell a lot of jokes. I don't, like usually the funniest things I say aren't intended necessarily to be funny.
Right.
You know what I mean? Those are the things that make people laugh. So. Right. But you have to be yourself. And I got to tell you, Karsten, I'm just so inspired to listen to you, to see the way you communicate, to see the way you carry yourself, to see the comfort that you have and confidence that you have in yourself to communicate in that way and be your authentic self. Honestly, is really inspiring, and it's been great. It's been great to hear your words. We are, if you can believe it, Karsten, we've been at this for almost an hour.
Yeah.
And we are going to have to, as I like to say, the landing gear is out, the runway is in sight, and we're going to have to land this plane here in a minute or two. I want to be respectful of your time. Is there anything that maybe you thought we might touch on or talk about today that we haven't had a chance to touch on? Anything that you just want to put on the table, but before we, any last minute seasoning you want to put on the table before we wrap things up?
I love it. To be honest, I think we talked about a whole lot, and if we did miss something, what we did cover was very impactful. I'll just end it by saying, number one, I've enjoyed this. Chris, thank you for using your influence in your space and being courageous to have those difficult conversations. It means more than you'll ever know. And I hope that you can influence your peers and for this to continue to happen. And then man, just to everyone listening, like I mean it. You are dope. Like, be comfortable in your skin. Be comfortable being you. Right now on my desk, I have chapstick, keyboard, iPhone, some wipes, my water bottle. Each of these things are different, but they also bring a purpose that the other things can't do. I can't drink from my keyboard and I can't type with my water bottle. So you have a part to play in this world. And even if you never get the chance to change the entire world, who you are will change someone else's world. So be unapologetically you. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Speak up, speak out, and help others speak out and speak up as well.
Man, incredibly inspiring. Karsten, it has been an absolute pleasure. I was excited to have you on, but you have far out-delivered and exceeded my expectations. Folks, for those of you who have been blowing up the chat, it's so great to see so many familiar names and familiar faces. Thank you so much for joining us for today's conversation. Karsten, I'm one who's rarely lost for words, but I don't have too many words other than to say thank you. This has been an absolute treat for me. If you're open to it, I'd love to invite you back. Yeah. Maybe you'll become, an annual guest. In fact, maybe, once a year, this time of year, we'll have this conversation and keep this conversation going. It's been an absolute delight. Karsten, hang around just for a minute backstage. I'm gonna give you your parting gift. For those of you who hung around for the entire time, if you're not connected with Karsten online, I cannot encourage you enough to reach out and connect with him. You have heard yourself what a great, just not only mind, but just what a great and insightful and thoughtful person he is. For those of you who hung around, thank you so much. We love having a good audience. If you'd like these, I encourage you to follow #TechSalesAdvice. I try to do this at least once a week. Check out the website Tech Sales Advisors if you want to learn anything more about me or my business. Otherwise, folks, thank you so much. Enjoy your weekend. Karsten, hang around just for a second. Thank you so much for being here. Otherwise, hey, man, you are dope, Karsten. That's all I got to say. And I don't think I've ever said that to anybody, but now I feel like I can because I know what it means.
Yeah, now you get the pass.
Thanks all. Be well.